You are listening to Brand Me, Alex Merced, with me, Alex Merced. On this show, we'll be talking about the ins and outs of branding and how to empower yourself by defining yourself. We'll talk about the tools, the methods, the strategies, so that way you can take a brand to achieve your goals in your personal life, your professional life, in all of your life. If you need help implementing these ideas and using these tools to achieve your goals, contact Alex Merced to be your branding coach by heading over to mercedbranding.com. If you've been enjoying this content by Merced Branding, head over to mercedbranding.com and check out the offers page, where you'll just find great offers from some of our sponsors, such as Amazon's Audible, Bluehost, and NordVPN. Check out mercedbranding.com. Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced, and you're listening to Brand Me, Alex Merced. And what I want to talk about today is community branding. Because one of the things that's most powerful in not just getting people to consume your brand, but to repeatedly consume your brand, is for it to be something that defines them. Okay, so not only do you want to define yourself, but you want your brand to be something that others can use to define them as well. And this was some sort of very much the approach I took with the Gamers Lounge. And that's, so if you guys might remember that story from that episode, several episodes ago, what we did is that before the store ever opened, we created an online message board and created a community around the brand before the store ever opened. And that allowed us for a lot of early success because people already kind of had an attachment to the product, an attachment to the brand. So if you're going to build something out, it might be something you might want to build that community, whether it's through a Facebook group or through live events. And this is what a lot of brands do nowadays. Like a lot of clothing brands, I mean, oftentimes a t-shirt's a t-shirt. So what a lot of t-shirt companies need to do is they need to develop a brand that makes that t-shirt more interesting to wear. They're not wearing the t-shirt because it's a better t-shirt. They're wearing the t-shirt because of what the brand says about them. So if you want to create a brand that, let's say you want to market a brand to a sort of very hip, artsy crowd, and you want them to buy your t-shirts, they need to see your brand in events that are congruent with that. So you might throw, sort of art gallery viewings, or, find some local artists who would like to do a viewing of their art, arrange the viewing of their art, and actually, make sure that people who show up are wearing your t-shirt. And you sponsor the event in a sense. So that way they're associating sort of, cool, fine art. I'm going to associate it with X brand. So now when I see that brand, it tells me that. And then people are going to be sort of very interested in they make that association. There's like, well, if I want to communicate that I'm into fine art and other people who are into fine art see me, I'm going to want to wear this brand. It just kind of says what I wanted to say. Now, of course, there's other aspects of how the brand appears. So again, if you're talking about a much more sort of fashion-forward group, you might want to have something a little more interesting looking t-shirts, interesting designs. So you may look around for different manufacturers. But let's say you're trying to, what a lot of people love to do online is create geek brands that are keyed towards geeks, which have not only visuals that appeal to geeks in the sense of like, thick rim glasses, video game characters, stuff that's very like 8-bit pixels. And that's part of it too, kind of knowing what does your audience identify with. Okay, so if you were doing a bunch of saying I'm a geek, but basically the t-shirts have sort of cursive writing on parchment, something that would probably maybe appeal to a historian or sort of people who kind of identify themselves as sort of American historians who enjoy things like the Constitution. They would probably associate more that sort of calligraphy on parchment. But if you said like I'm a geek, I love Mario 3, on parchment with cursive writing on it, it probably wouldn't communicate the right message. It'd be like, okay, I get that, but someone who sees a shirt and unless they read the text, they're probably going to think this is sort of some, listen to the founders type t-shirt, not, hey, I like Mario 3 type t-shirt. So it always comes down to knowing your audience, but knowing what fonts that may spark sort of nostalgia with them. Like, what are the experiences that they shared? That's all about market research. But you can build that. But so again, that aspect of it. but you may want to build that community. So you do the events, but you don't want to just do the event. You want to make sure that people get to know each other and participate with each other. Because if someone makes a friend, like going back to the Gamers Lounge story where people actually met and got married because they met at the Gamers Lounge, then they're very loyal to the brand and very loyal to the product because it had such an impact on their lives. So by creating social spaces where people can meet people and create actual impactful and substantial relationships, that'll create an association with your brand that'll create sort of that customer loyalty. So in that case, you want to create those social spaces, whether through an online Facebook group, meetup groups for like local events, stuff like that. You want your people who are your target market interacting each other through your brand, meeting each other through your brand. You want them to think that this brand is the connecting point. This is this is the center of the community, and the community exists because this brand facilitates the community. So then everyone's going to want to make sure that stays alive. And that's generally the approach I've taken for a lot of the brands I've done, in the sense of trying to make it the focal point for how people meet each other, how people get to know each other, because that creates a level of loyalty that is going to be very good for your brand. But again, you got to make sure that you're connecting people within your target market, so that way it's congruent and it jives and it makes sense. So again, if you're doing that geek event, let's say that geek brand, so you want to make sure that your t-shirts, let's say, have the 8-bit fonts and images that seem very reminiscent of old school video games, stuff like that. But you may want to throw like a Smash Brothers tournament, okay, where you basically get a bunch of old Nintendo 64s and everyone comes out and basically defeats each other, because it's going to bring out the people who are more likely to want to buy your t-shirts. But it's also going to bring people together and make people interested. And then, you do a series of these things, they'll get interested. And other ways of building communities, one of my favorite ways of building communities and building word of mouth is through appealing to collectors. So when I worked as a marketing intern for Shane and Sean, also a previous episode, one of the suggestions I made with them, and I don't think they ever actually did this, but I still think it would have been a really cool idea, is coming out with sort of limited edition shoes. Because the idea is, if you come out with like a limited edition color of a particular shoe or a limited edition design, it becomes a collector's item. And a lot of brands use this sort of methodology to kind of promote their brands. Because the collector's item will build value over time, but then you build a captive audience. So that basically this is what happens when you see like a lot of shoe releases, where basically people wait in long lines to get the shoe because there's only so many of them out there. And they'll buy multiple pairs because they know they can resell other pairs at a higher price later. So one, it's a great way to kind of encourage more sales up front, but also builds a culture. Like then what happens is that people will be tracking down, and there becomes this collector culture around your brand. So if you're actually selling a physical product, coming out with limited editions on a regular basis and trying to facilitate that collector culture, that collector community, is another way to really help build a brand. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean your whole brand is only collector products, but you have a collection line. Because then what happens is that the culture, the community that builds around the collection of the sort of the limited edition stuff helps facilitate knowledge and hype around sort of your regular line of items. Again, it doesn't have to be clothing. It could be really anything. They do this with comic books. So I remember when we sold comic books at the Gamers Lounge, one of the ways that you would make money as a comic book store is that you don't make that much money on the comics themselves. You pay like, let's say, $3 a comic and then sell it for $4. So you really don't make much. But if you buy 10 comics, and this is what you would generate subscriber lists, which were referred to as pull lists, meaning you would pull comic books to the side for these customers. And if you can build a pull list of several people, so let's say I built a pull list of at least 10 people for Spider-Man. So I know every week I'm going to be ordering at least 10 issues of Spider-Man. Just for every 10 issues, you get like a variant cover, which you would get this unique cover. The only way you got it is if you were the store who ordered the comic books. And this is essentially where the profit came in for the comic book store, because then they could go then sell the limited edition cover for a higher price. They could either just put it on the shelf and sell it for a higher price. I mean, unfortunately, some stores, like, the big box stores, they would just put it on the shelf with the other comics. But, your small comic book stores, what they would do is there's this thing called getting your comic book graded, where you submit it to this place, and as long as it's in mint condition, they put it into this plastic thing and they give it a grade. So if you had like a 10, that means it's in perfect condition. It's now vacuum sealed in this little box thing, and you have a perfect version of this limited edition cover. And if you get the limited edition cover, so basically the way comic books run is that generally there's like a plot arc, a story, and a story's told over like, let's say 7, 8 comics. So if you have that whole story arc graded with a variant cover in perfect condition, that's very hard to do. That's very hard to find. There's not going to be many of those out there. You could then sell that for much more, go on eBay and then sell that for a much significant, a significant profit. So basically what the comic book companies did is they created this collector culture by having this variant cover that, even though you didn't make that much money on the each individual issue of the comic book that you sold, it created this collector culture that facilitated this profit center for comic book stores and comic book collectors that makes it worth it to manufacture and sell and buy all these other comics, where the profit margin wasn't as huge for the comic book store. So that way there would still be a distribution network. So again, that sort of community building, collector communities, these are great ways to, one, sort of build up a brand, and then also they have some business aspects to it too, where they do create avenues for profit. Okay, so that's kind of what I wanted to say this week. There'll always be more information next week. When I see you guys in the next episode. Again, my name is Alex Merced, and you're listening to Brand Me, Alex Merced. If you enjoy the show, please leave a review on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher. That's how more people get to find out about the show. Also, share it with your friends, because we're trying to empower you by helping you define yourself. Empower yourself by defining yourself. And that's an important message. And this free advice could be really useful. Now, of course, if you guys need some help and you need a coach, you guys can reach out to me. More than glad to facilitate that. But at the same day, I'm really hoping that this information is stuff that you can just put into action and change your life for the better. And I hope that you encourage other people to listen to the show so that way they can change their life or improve their life for the better. So my name is Alex Merced. I'll see you guys next time. Have a great one and enjoy. Thank you for listening to Brand Me, Alex Merced on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to like Alex Merced on Facebook, on Twitter, and head over to mercedbranding.com to find us on social media and find other useful advice and resources in marketing and achieving your goals.